Welcome to Aggie Sports Overtime on what has been a somber week here in Aggie land with the passing of Heisman Trophy winner John David Crow. I'm Chris and he's Lee.
John David Crow passed away late Wednesday night at the age of 79. He was surrounded by his wife Carolyn, their 2 daughters, and several grandchildren. Crow is one of the most decorated student athletes in Texas A&M history. Speaking to a few of his friends and colleagues this week, I learned that Crow was a man who was just as amazing off the field as he was on the field. Join us now as we remember and celebrate the life of John David Crow. A true Aggie legend in every sense of the word, John David Crow has left a lasting legacy at Texas A&M.
Well, I tell you, John David Crow, in my opinion, would be the favorite son of Aggie land.
Over the years as I've traveled around the country, the one name people would always ask me about was John David Crow. You know, how's John David doing? What's he doing? You know, so he's certainly the most notable in my career here at A&M, person that I've ever run across.
Considered one of, if not the best football player in Texas A&M history, John David Crow played on both sides of the ball for the Aggies from 1955 to 1957. Following the 57 season, Crow became the first Aggie to win the Heisman Trophy. He is the only player to win the Heisman while playing for legendary coach Paul "Bear" Bryant.
I know Coach Bryant loved John David Crow, and I visited Coach Bryant's son. I'm not sure how, he was a young child here, now I think about 8 or 9 years old when his dad coached here, but I know he and John David are still very, very close. And he admires him because he knew how much his dad cared for John David.
Osborne seems to thrive on this kind of also business and finally works out the answer of Pastor John Crow on the sidelines. Watch All-American John take over. Big John always said he liked to run over people, and he does.
Crow was taken 2nd overall by the Chicago Cardinals in the 1958 NFL Draft. He went on to play 11 seasons in the NFL, 7 with the Cardinals and 4 with the San Francisco 49ers. Crow made 4 Pro Bowls throughout his career.
The bottom line, when you consider a guy who won a Heisman Trophy, played in the NFL 11 years, was an All-Pro, and so you might think that he might have a large ego. He did not. He is very humble. You wouldn't know that, and as soon as you would begin discussion about his individual performance, it turns to team and coaches. And I just think that's the way he was brought up by his family. And also I think a lot of the coaches, maybe Coach Bryant had a large part of that as well.
He had a humble upbringing, and he was very thankful that and appreciative of the fact that he was awarded the Heisman Trophy, but he would also be very quick to say that he didn't win the Heisman Trophy. His teammates, and he was recognized with the Heisman, but his teammates had a whole lot to do with it, and his coaches had a lot to do with it.
After his playing career, Crow coached for years in both college and the pros. He would later return to Texas A&M, and in 1988, Crow was named the school's athletics director on the same day R.C. Slocum was named the Aggies' head football coach.
His most endearing quality to me is that when he told you something, you didn't have to try to read between the lines or try to figure out what it meant. He was a straightforward, totally honest person, and someone you could trust. Anything he told you as a coach, him being AD, it was to me to have someone like that that had your back when we had issues we had to discuss. I always knew exactly what he meant, and I knew I could always count on him being and doing what he said he was going to do.
He's just a pillar of not only Texas A&M, but this community. He and his wife Carolyn living here in town. It's just been super to have them here, and we'll miss John David very greatly.
John David Crow represents the core values of Texas A&M: respect, integrity, leadership, excellence, loyalty. Number 44 is a true Aggie legend in every sense of the word. We definitely want to thank Texas A&M Athletics for providing us with additional game footage of John David Crow. I don't think it's a stretch to say that a lot of us did not get a chance to see John David Crow play live. Well, this quote from his coach, Bear Bryant, should help imagine what that would be like for us to watch him play. Quote, "John David Crow was the finest player I ever coached. Watching film on him was like watching a grown man play with boys, end quote.
Strong words there from a legend. Another Ag that made the competition look foolish stepped onto Kyle Field 55 years later. That, of course, was Johnny Manziel. Crow and Manziel met in 2012 for a photo shoot when Johnny was a Heisman Trophy finalist. Of course, Manziel would go on to win the 25-pound bronze statue a week later, forever linking the two in Texas A&M history. After hearing the news of Crow's passing, Manziel released this statement through his current team, the Cleveland Browns, on Thursday. Aggie Land lost a hero today with the passing of John David Crow. He was a legend on the field and a gentleman off of it. My family and I were fortunate to have spent some time with Mr. Crow, and he shared some great stories about winning his Heisman Trophy. He couldn't have been nicer or more encouraging. He will always remain Mr. Aggie football at Texas A&M.
Texas A&M football coach Kevin Sumlin released this statement regarding Crow, quote, "The one thing you knew without reservation was John David Crow was loyal to Texas A&M. He has always been supportive of me and our football program. He was always willing to do whatever we asked, and that meant a great deal. Our thoughts and prayers are with his wife Carolyn and his entire family, as well as our Aggie football family," end quote.
The current Texas A&M athletics director, Eric Hyman, also commented on the former AD. This is a sad day for the Aggie family, and our thoughts and prayers are with Carolyn and the entire Crow family. We have lost a true Aggie legend and one of the all-time college football greats. Not only was John David the first Heisman winner in Texas A&M history, but he was the only Heisman winner to play for legendary coach Paul Bear Bryant. What many don't know is that John David was also a terrific coach and outstanding athletics administrator. This year we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of women's athletics at Texas A&M, and it was John David who really took the lead in helping develop women's athletics at our university. In getting to know John David, one thing was quite clear. He believed if you were going to do anything, you better do it right and to the best of your abilities. Texas A&M will hold a celebration of John David Crow's life Tuesday, June 23rd at 2 o'clock inside Reed Arena. The Aggies' first Heisman winner, John David Crow, gone at 79 years old.